We are back with chapter 74 of The Chosen Journey with Big Money Grip Steve Carsey and Jonathan, the Chosen Lawyer. As promised last week, we're going to start to dissect and figure out what the heck is going on. We're in early September, and we should have clarity as far as the MLB playoff picture with three wildcard teams per league. Steve Carsey, every day I have to sit and update the chart because it's all over the map. That extra wildcard team is causing us fits because every week, every day, we're no clearer as far as the majority of the teams who's actually going to make it at the end to the big playoff race.
Yeah, it really is day to day, standings jumping type of deal. We have both leagues with that extra wild card, and there's a lot of teams that are vying for that spot. Obviously, when you have multiple teams in the same division who are going to be playing each other coming down the stretch, that's really going to affect how these teams jump each other in the standings and ultimately who's going to get in at the end of September, beginning of October.
You want to start with the AL or NL?
Let's start with the AL.
All right. So with the AL, looking at the division leaders, as far as in the Central, that's kind of a race to the bottom, so to speak. I mean, somebody has to get in, but it's not been the strongest division. Looks like it's gonna be Minnesota. I don't know. Maybe somehow the Guardians, or I keep saying Indians, the Guardians keep going on a run, but I don't think there's enough magic in there. I think the Twins are making it in. That AL East, which has been a dogfight all year. I was sure it was going to be the Rays, but did not realize their whole rotation was going to go into the dumper. Did not realize that Franco was going to go out and min leave. And Steve, they're still likely making the playoffs, maybe not as the division leader, but they're still making it. So I'll give them credit. But those Orioles, you've been touting them, they're looking real good out there.
Yeah, they're a solidified team, right? I mean, their defense has been really well. Obviously, they have timely hitting. They got guys can hit the ball out of the ballpark, and the biggest surprise to me is how their starting pitching has held up and has gotten them, deeper into games than what we're usually seeing. And the back end of the bullpen is really good and has been really good for the majority of the year. If it wasn't for Batista, I really don't think they would be in the spot that they're in right now. But they've put together quite a nice roster construction and how they did it, and then they added pieces right at the trading deadline to help them out. So kudos to them. I think they're a little bit ahead of schedule, maybe a year ahead of schedule of what they expected, but just kind of keep your finger pointed at the Orioles for years to come because they're going to be a beast in that AL East division for the next 5 to 6 years, as long as they can keep that group together.
It's gonna say Angelos is gonna have to dig into his pockets deep because they're gonna have to find some money because this talent's gonna want to get paid at some point. They're doing, as far as those position players, Gunnar Henderson, Ali Rushman, like wow, just the collection there. But over in the West, this is the one you and I going back and forth on all the time. My Texas Rangers ain't going anywhere. Just watch them the other night. Steve, the numbers from each of those hitters, 1 through 4, Simeon leadoff home run. You got Seager batting second, Low, like it just goes on and on. Murderers row. Like they have 5, 6 guys that are 30 plus home run guys. They got 7, 8 in the starting rotation. They got 2 closers. They ain't going nowhere. I mean, Astros still it's still the Astros. You can't discount them, right? But those two teams are making the playoffs guaranteed one way or the other.
Well, what do I always tell you? Good pitching stops good hitting. Rangers just got swept by the Brewers in Arlington, right? And then they just lost 2 to the Diamondbacks, so they're on a 5-game losing streak. The other 2 teams they've come back to the pack. Not only the Astros, but if I remember right off the top of my head, the Seattle Mariners are only 3 games back.
They are currently sitting, as of the taping, they are in a wild card position. Steve, I watched the Mariners live. I saw their lineup. I wasn't like wooed like the other teams. I don't know how they're pulling this off, and they traded their closer. Like this looks to me like a real team effort. This is not like a gang of 10 million superstars. They have obviously their main guy in Julio, but you trade your closer, team gets disenchanted, and what do? They get themselves in the playoff picture. Amazing.
Well, this is where like it's a good balance between us because you always go to the lineup, and I always revert back to the pitching. I think they have the best rotation in Major League Baseball right now. That's why they're at right where they're at. I think at the end of the day, these guys like Logan Gilbert and the other guys that follow him are putting them in a position to continue to climb and to continue to be who they are. Their lineup just grinds it out. Obviously, Julio's been really good in the second half. Cal Raleigh is just doing his thing. They have Ty France, so they have hitters within their lineup that produce. And I think the glue to that lineup is Suarez. And how he just fits in there and does what he does. So at the end of the day, these guys believe in themselves. These guys believe they have a good team, and they go out there and play day by day, and they've put something special together here, and they're going to be a force to reckon with. The one thing that again I always revert back to is the experience level of when they do get into the playoffs, and can you play the same way that you're playing right now, playing loose, playing free, and playing to win. Like sometimes the pressure can kind of get to some young guys that haven't experienced all that, but some of these guys have, and I'll be really interested to continue to follow them and watch them as the season starts to come to a conclusion.
And shockingly enough, the team with one of the best rotations and one of the best bullpens is the Toronto Blue Jays. And a lot of names in the lineup, but they're on the outside looking in, and the clock is ticking. And this is a team that had a lot of expectations behind them. And when I look at the Rangers, when I look at the Astros, when I look at the Orioles, I'm just seeing teams that have more talent. It just I'm sorry to say that. Like when you have a lot of veteran guys and you try to piece it together, everybody's got to execute. When more than half your lineup is having down years, it's really hard. The rotation can't do it every single game. It gets really, really frustrating. I've been hearing words from the starting pitchers at the Blue Jays. We got to grind it out. We got to come with more focus, more intensity. These are not good things, when you're not making the playoffs. But they're only like a 6-game winning streak away from doing it. So you never know, right?
Yeah, one good week by one team and one bad week by another team completely changes the standings and changes the perception of where you're at. It's such a crazy game of confidence. You go there's always these lulls that you go through during the season, and when you hit them, and you just hope you don't hit them at the wrong time, which is kind of at the end of the season, and then you want to get hot at the right time, like the Seattle Mariners are doing, and put some winning streaks together. So, I think, and I haven't looked at this, but the strength of schedule is going to play into account as we
Absolutely.
get into September, and you got to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. So when they play, or if they play the A's or the Royals or the
Angels.
Rockies, you have to beat those teams. Like I'm not saying you have to win every game, and we've talked about this before, but in a 3-game series, you have to find a way to win 2 of 3. And if you can take 3 of 3, that's even better. But you have to win a series, especially in September when you're right on the cusp of either getting in or getting out.
The last team I'm going to say on the AL, I'm not writing them off yet. I was taking a look at the standings. Those Red Sox have not gone away yet. They're still lingering there. Guys have come back. All of a sudden, the first baseman, Tristan, is starting to hit. You know what? You never know. It is still the Red Sox, so I wouldn't count them out quite yet. It's having, I wasn't initially a fan of having this many teams make the playoffs and having an early trade deadline, but it's brought a lot more interest to a lot more cities, certainly. Like imagine, you remember back in the day when we had the AL East and the AL West and there was no Central, there were no wild cards. Look how many more cities are involved now. Look how many more fans are involved. I would say for overall for the game, it's definitely piqued interest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't want to get carried away and have half the league make the playoffs because then what is the
That's called the
regular
NBA,
season really
Steve.
for? Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the regular season really for? So, uh, I think they try to strike a balance between this and adding that extra wild card makes it a lot more interesting, and the way they set up the wild card series, the division series, and it also makes them a little bit more money. So I think they're all happy that this is playing out the way it is.
It is all about making money, and anybody who thinks differently is sorely mistaken. Let's get to the AL and the AL picture. So the Braves and Dodgers are now in stone. I don't know if they've been declared already the division winners, but that's happening guaranteed. Those two are just so ahead of the pack. It's not even funny. So they speak for themselves. And the Braves, everybody's telling them is the World Series champions this year, but I'm not going to hand it to them just yet. But they are looking mighty good. The other division leader is your Brewers. What the heck happened there? I was sure it was going to be the Pirates early on, then I was positive it was going to be the Reds. Those Brewers just linger somehow, and you're going to tell me it's pitching.
I would go always back to the pitching, but yes, I mean, the top three of Burns now that Woodruff is back, and then Peralta, and then you had Wade Miley, like Adrian Hauser. They just have some depth in their pitching staff. The bullpen has pitched really well here of late, and pretty much all year. They understand that the way they construct their roster is offensively they can struggle at times, and it's built on pitching. So, they hang around. They win one-run games. They win extra inning games. They keep games close because of their pitching, and they find a way to win the one-run games. And I think that's what keeps them afloat. And obviously, the Cardinals are having a terrible season, and I think they're just in a different place right now with their starting pitching not having a lot of upper echelon stuff or strikeout pitchers on their staff, which I think hurts them. And then you got the young teams like the Pirates and the Reds. I think their young players are starting to feel the grind of 162 game season. They're going to be really good in the future. I'm just not sure if they have enough gas in the tank to finish strong. And the surprise to me is the Cubs, right? I mean, I think the Cubs have been the team that has surprised me the most. They got re-energized Bellinger. Their pitching has been well. Swanson has been a real nice addition to their club and gives them experience. So, if they pitch well enough, and I'm not sure. I know that the Brewers and the Cubs face each other in a series or two here coming down the end, and if I remember right again, I think the Cubs and the Brewers have a three-game series to finish the season off, which would be an amazing end to a season if it comes down to that series to win the division. But time will tell with that, and it's going to be a race to the final day in the NL Central.
I still believe the Brewers are going to do it. I don't think the Cubs have the horses that the Brewers do. And congratulations to your Brewers. You told me a stat about the Brewers the other day. You messaged it to me. I didn't believe this. You want to share this one?
Well, yeah, I sent it to you. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head or what the records are, but since 2018, they have the third best record in Major League Baseball behind the Dodgers. And who is the second team in there?
I thought it
Is
was
it
the
the
Braves.
Yankees?
Maybe it was the
Or
Yankees or
maybe
the
the
Braves.
Braves. Maybe it was the Braves. But one of those two teams, they have a better record since 2018 in the whole league.
What the all of baseball? Like I would have never guessed
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I would have never guessed that. And it's again, they're always in it. They're always in it. They're finding a way. It's that expression you said. It's better to get a guy 1 year too early than the year too late. And they keep replenishing and replenishing and replenishing a la Tampa Bay, and they keep staying in there. So kudos to the Brewers, man. It's a testament to that management to find a way.
Well, no doubt. It's the front office and those guys who are in player development, whether they develop the players in the minor leagues or whether they really dig through the numbers and find what fits on their ball club. excuse me, what fits on their ball club for the next year coming up, as free agents are concerned. As nice it is to have big names on your team, I think it's even more important to have the right guys that fit uh, as a collective whole, and being bigger than the sum of your parts, so to speak, to get the best out of each player at each position that you can. And then they don't make silly mistakes with super long-term contracts that bog them down for such a long time. Any long-term contract is both player friendly and team friendly, and they manage within their constraints of what they're capable and what they're able to do financially.
The NL wild card race, as we sum up today's chapter, it's a gong show right now. So as of today's taping, because it changed yesterday, so you got the Phillies, Cubs, and Dbacks. I had to put the Dbacks in there because the Reds were originally in there. So you got those three teams with the Reds, the Giants, the Marlins, and I'm not counting out the Padres just yet. Nobody else in baseball has with a below 500 record, but there's still enough games back. I think they could find a way somehow, somewhere, because there are three wild card teams. But even when you take out the Padres, there's essentially six teams all right in it for three spots.
Yes, correct. So I will challenge you a little bit on the Padres here. Uh, what do you have them? How many games back are they?
As of today's taping, 8 games from a wild card spot.
Okay, so the big thing is how many teams do they have to jump?
Too many. You got to
That's
jump.
why that
You got to jump 4 teams.
that's why they're out. It's virtually impossible being 8 games back and jumping 4 teams. You have to hope that all 4 teams in front of you lose to pick up a game. So that's where that becomes, more difficult and a big challenge to
They just
doing
got
that.
so much talent. They have the kind of talent to go on a 15-game winning streak. Let's be honest. Like with that level of talent, it could be there. But the challenges of day in and day out of grinding it out there and being able to put together that kind of winning streak, probably not in the cards. So
Yeah, so
yeah,
if they go 15-0, and the team that they're chasing, right, goes 10-5,
yeah.
but who's to say the 3 teams behind that team isn't
Right,
having a better, So
right.
that's where it becomes more difficult, and I think the challenge of the wild card race, so to speak. I think if you're a game to 3 out in the wild card, there's always that chance because of how many teams you might have to jump. But to be at that big of a distance and then in the rear view mirror. Um, and who's to say those 2 teams in front of you aren't playing each other? So one of them's going to win, right? So no matter if you win or lose, you're not picking up you're only losing ground if you lose, and you can't pick up a game if you win.
There's only one team from those six. Let's take out the Padres, for example. There's only of the 6 teams. I'm going to guarantee the Phillies are getting one of those wild card spots. I can't see them getting bounced out with their talent where they're at from the standing standpoint. But literally, even still, from these 6 teams, you can't discount the Marlins, the Giants, the Reds. They all have had talent. They've all shown it this year.
Mm-hmm.
Little mini winning streaks, little mini losing streaks. Like when you're a fan of a certain team and you talk about those 3 game series, right? When you're constantly losing 2 and only winning 1, you're going to constantly lose ground. And you think you got in this nice stranglehold. Remember the Mets had a 10-game lead going into September?
Mm-hmm.
What happened? Still went. You lose enough games. It's 162 games.
Yes.
It's a challenge to hold on and keeping those spots.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely agree with you on that aspect. One good week and one bad week when teams are right behind each other can make a huge difference. I mean, a team goes 1-5 and the other team goes 5-1, right? You're picking up 4 games in a week, and again, it's really hard to do. I mean, it's winning a baseball game is really hard to do. So you got to win the ones you got to win, and can't give away any. Coming down the stretch.
If we're sitting on October 1st when we're doing a taping and the Marlins, the Giants, and the Reds are the 3 wildcard teams, would you be that surprised?
I wouldn't, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised any three of those six can can kind of weasel their way in and get into a wild card spot. Come down the stretch.
Cubs and D-backs have surprised a lot of people this year, but it comes down to you keep grinding out, you keep playing hard, you get those wins, you get the results. That's all it comes down to it, whatever it is. And the other thing is all those division leaders, no coincidences as far as the level of managers. Now, there's 30 managers and they're all great in their own respects, but there's certain managers that are very spoken highly of the game. Like I told you, like with the Rangers, I was shocked where they're at. And I'm like, oh, Bruce Bochy, that's right. Oh, Mike Maddox is the pitching coach, right? Brandon Hyde, look at how he's spoken of in the game in Baltimore. He doesn't get a lot of credit, but he's a guy who's been in the game, really pushed hard, really highly thought of. When you have a manager that the players trust, they play hard for, you're going to win.
Yeah, it makes a big difference when you're a player's manager and you know that the manager has your back and he doesn't panic. That makes the biggest difference in the world.
And that's a great segue to next week's chapter because we're going to be talking about one of the greatest managers of all time. And looks like he may be hanging up this year. And we're going to be talking and doing a little tribute to him. So stay tuned on The Chosen Journey.